Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Road to Retirement. My name is Chris Anselmo. I'm here with our co-host Tony Shore. How we doing today, Tony?
I am great. I've had a good week. I'm alive and awake this morning. I need to still
Okay.
drink some more coffee to keep up with you. I know you've been going strong. Speaking of needing coffee, this time of year, I don't know how you do it with you guys do all the
Yeah,
taxes
yeah,
and
it's
for your
crazy.
clients and
Yeah,
wow.
so I thought today we'd talk a little bit about because nobody wants to talk about, nobody wants to think about it, about long-term care and nursing homes. No,
Oh,
it's never going to
yeah.
happen to them.
Right.
So I'll give you a couple stories. Actually, it happened to my dad, and so this is a um, close to home. That's why we brought in Matt to do a lot of our elder care planning. So the story of my dad was my dad had 8 brothers and sisters, including himself.
Oh, wow.
So 6 or 7 of them died early of heart attacks, right? So my dad's
Mm.
like, "Well, I'm never going to nursing home, right? Don't waste your time drafting all those fancy documents. I'm not going to go to nursing home." So sure enough, I drafted the fancy documents years and years ago, and he wouldn't sign them. Like, it's not going to happen to me, right? Because it's not going to happen to me. So lo and behold, my dad gets Lewy bodies disease, which is Parkinson's and Alzheimer's kind of mixed together.
Yeah.
So he's pretty good. He's functional. He does all his daily living. He takes his own showers and baths and stuff. He doesn't drive anymore, but eventually the disease is going to get worse and consume him. So the last year of his life, he needed a hip replacement. So he went in to get a hip replacement, and when he was rehabbing, um, out of the blue, my mom needed a knee replacement. So now my mom
Oh,
couldn't stay at home and watch him, and so
oh
we ended up
boy.
we ended up putting my dad in a nursing home where he spent
Mhm.
the last 7 months of his life, and it was a good facility and all that. But we spent close to 100 grand on nursing home cares,
Yikes.
which we never thought we'd spend.
Hmm.
So, and Tony, my dad I sold produce for a living, so
Yeah.
a lot of tomatoes and potatoes to come up with 100 grand. So,
Yeah.
but the lesson really there is that he could have saved the money if he would have just did the. I'm like, Dad, I'm not charging you to do the documents, right? So just sign the document. No, I'm not going to
Yeah.
sign. So anyhow, so there we are, 100
Oh.
grand short from my mom. So I was doing a few tax returns this past week, and one person needed 24-hour in-home care. One person was in a nursing homes, and you know, at the end of the day, oh, it's nice we get to write it all, most of it off, and we
Mhm.
don't they don't owe any taxes this year. Oh, thanks very much. But the one in the in-home care spent um, about $150,000
Oh.
because she had care 24/7. So she had 3 shifts, 8-hour shifts that people come in the house. Um, so and another one who was in a nursing home spent 120,000 because it's about $10,000 a month here. So it's not for the first lady, it's not so awful because she's single, right? So she
Right.
spend it all, do what you need to do. But if you have someone at home, and like my mom could use the extra 100 grand, right? So,
Yeah.
I just thought we'd talk about it and the statistics about it. The statistic blows my mind every time I say it. 2 out of 3 over the age of 70 will spend some time in a facility.
So 2 out of every 3 people will need long-term care at some point.
If you reach the age of 70. So,
Yeah, from
yeah.
70 over.
So
And I think it's more it is actually I read the stats on this recently, and it's more than 1 out of every 3 over 65. So,
right.
it's, if you think it's not gonna happen to me,
Yeah.
it's
And
probably gonna
yeah.
happen. If it doesn't happen to you, it'll happen to your spouse.
Well, and for the
So
if there are any women listening, you're more likely than the guy because
you live longer.
you live longer, and
Yeah.
the reality is you probably take care of the husband at home until he passes away, and then there's no one there to take care of you, especially, we have a lot of extended families, like my kids live in Denver and in Washington, D.C. If I went in a nursing home, there's no, they're not coming back here to, wipe my ass. So, but
So
so
to
any,
speak.
yeah,
to
yeah,
speak.
so to speak.
Yeah.
So, so it's really important because basically how the Medicaid system works, I kind of look at it as your left pocket and your right pocket. So right now, I wish I knew how to do this better, but I was going to do a PowerPoint for this, and we'll probably do it another time. But so conceptually, short things are Medicaid's not going to pay until you are under a certain asset limit. So because their concept is like Medicaid's really just for the poor. If you have assets, you should pay for it yourself, right?
Right.
So if you're single, it's very limited. So if you're single, you can keep a house, you can keep a car, you can keep a funeral plan, and about $2,000. Okay. If you're married, you can keep all those things. Plus, you can keep half of your assets up to about $130,000. So it's not half your assets; it's half of them up to 130. So if you have
Wow.
$1 million of assets, you don't get to keep 500. You get to keep 130. So until you spend that money down till you get into the Medicaid limits, you have to pay for it yourself.
Yeah. So Medicare doesn't cover long-term care.
No.
That's a misconception a lot of people have.
Right.
And then they say, well, okay, Medicaid does. No, not
Mhm.
unless you're, I mean, for a
Right.
lot of people, you have to be pretty much broke. Like
Right. So
$2,000 in your home is
Yeah.
all they're going to leave you with.
Well, and it's even worse because if, say, Tony, you're single and you go in and let's say you have a $300,000 house, and by the time you're gone, they spend $200,000 on your care. They put a lien on your house, at least here in Ohio, for the
Yep.
$200,000 they spent on you. So when your loved ones go to sell the house, they have to pay off that lien.
Yeah, so you're not painting a pretty picture here, Chris.
No.
It's tough, but I know why you're doing this. It's to wake up the listeners out there to the harsh realities of the cost of long-term care and healthcare in general in retirement.
Yeah.
A lot of people think I hit 65, Medicare will take care of me. I don't have to worry about
Yeah.
that expensive health insurance anymore.
Medicare only takes care of up to 100 days and up to it, which means if they diagnose you that you're not getting better, so you have Alzheimer's, you're not getting better, you're done. You're off Medicare. So
Right.
You're off Medicare. So you're on your own. So there's this other misconception that the nursing homes take houses, they take your cars, they take your bank account. They don't take anything. Tony, you want your mom in the nursing home in March? Here's the bill. It's 10 grand. Either pay the bill or take your mother out.
Yep.
Here's the bill for April. It's 10 grand. Pay the bill, take your mother. They're not in the business of owning houses and owning cars and
Nope.
trying to recoup assets. Basically, you're renting space for them for that month. You pay the rent or you leave. So
Yeah.
now, where people get into trouble there's this look back period we talked about before. A look back period is
5 years.
5 years currently. When we first started this, it was 24 months. Then it went to 30 months. Then it went to 36 months. Now it's 60 months. And there's talk about making it 72 months. So for the listeners, a look back period is basically this. So if you give away money within 5 years of going into the facility, or I'm not saying 5 years, so you want Medicaid to pay. So Medicaid's going to
Sure.
look back at all your assets for the last 5 years and go through all your bank accounts and say, hey, we see you gave $30,000 away to your nephew, Tony. And they said, well, that was just a gift, and that was 4 years ago. Well, $30,000 could pay for 3 or 4 months of care. So for the next 3 or 4 months, we're not. So there's a penalty there for 4 months. We're not paying for those 4 months, but we don't have any money left. We don't care. We're just not paying for those 4 months. You find somebody else to pay for you. So the penalty period is if you give the money away within 5 years, and let's say it's $10,000 a month, you give away $100,000. They say, look, you could have paid for 10 months on your own. So we're not paying for it. Come back in 10 months, right? We're not paying for those 10 months. So it happens more than enough often was that people either give money to their children, which is not the greatest thing to do because if the children spend it, who's going to pay for the care? Or children get divorced, children get car accidents. Children get divorced. You potentially leaves half that money to that no good son-in-law who was never good enough for your daughter anyhow. So,
Right. Right. Have you been talking to my mother-in-law?
yeah.
That sounds like something she would say.
So, so it's really, it's really penal. So we want to make sure you do it the right way. So there are specialized trusts that we use, different than your everyday living trust that you hear about time and time again, either on the radio or on the TV or internet. Your typical living trust does nothing to protect your assets for this Medicaid spend down. So primarily because you have too much control over it. If you have too much control over the assets, then Medicaid says, well, if you have control over it, go take the money out of the trust and pay for your own care. So we create the specialized trust. We call it our heritage trust. We can move assets into it, houses. So we like to move the house in so that there is no lien on the house if something happens later. Because if the house is out of the look back for 5 years, then there's no potential lien. It's called the state recovery here, that they can slap that lien on the house. We try to also move assets that are non-qualified, which means any non-retirement accounts we'd like to move in there. So if we had to, we leave the retirement assets in the person's name and let them live off the retirement assets for at least the next 5 years, and try and protect the stuff that we put in what we call the right pocket. So it's a game that we have to play, because unfortunately our government would rather spend money on Mars than spend money helping our retirees. I mean,
don't get me started.
Yeah, I mean, they waste so much money on things that let's not get started there. So I mean, we can have a whole program on that.
Well, you hit on one of my two biggest pet peeves with our government and the way they spend is seniors and veterans. And they don't, the VA is not up to snuff. They don't spend enough money to take care of our veterans and their health care, and they don't do enough to help our seniors. I'm not Mr. Liberal, but I do think that's where our government tax money should be spent.
Sure.
So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but I could go on that.
Yeah, and I don't think any red-blooded American would disagree with that. So I mean, personally, I like the military. I don't think they should pay tax on their income.
No,
I mean, they do, but I mean, I don't think they should pay, and I don't think they should pay tax on their retirement funds either. So, especially what's going on across the world right now, they're the front line. They're putting their lives on the line. So the big thing is, so what do you do? So, and you have to do it before it's, this. Now look, if you can't do the 5-year planning because you don't have 5 years left, or you're going into the nursing home within the next few months, there's still stuff you can do. It might not be the best you can do, like if you had 5 years to plan, but there's still stuff you can do. We can get Matt in, and he knows all the ins and outs of how to save. Rather save half the loaf of bread than none of it, right? So there is stuff you can do,
right? But
the general public doesn't know it. They just think you just have to spend it all until you're broke. So it's a game we have to play. It's an unfortunate game we have to play, and I tell our clients, look, I would love not to have to do this, but you want to save the money. This is how we do it. So we create this trust. We put the house in, we put the non-retirement assets in. And as you're getting closer and closer to maybe potentially going in, maybe we even do the retirement assets. So the retirement assets, what we would have to do is first we'd have to take it out of the retirement account, pay the taxes, and then potentially move over the after-tax money there. So that way we can potentially save some of that too. So most of the planning right now is like, if we can move everything other than your IRAs over, maybe you can live off your IRAs for the rest of your life. And, hopefully you're one of the three that don't go in. But if you don't, you at least limit your exposure on how much you're going to spend down. Because, I was doing a little PowerPoint presentation, fair, but that was like, you have a $300,000 house, you have some investments, your total net worth maybe $1 million, and not everyone has $1 million, but the thing is that people don't understand is this: save half your assets up to 130. So the millionaire has to spend even more to get down to 130, right? So if you have $1 million of assets, and outside your house, you have to spend, you know, $870,000 to get down to 130. So, and 130 is not a lot of money to just, if you're the surviving spouse and you have 20 years to live. Because the average, believe it or not, the average widow, this is strange, but the average widow lives about 14 years longer than the husband.
Yep.
So, if you have 14 years left and you only have 100, let's say 140,000, that's $10,000 a year. That's not a lot of money to do the things you want to do in retirement. You know, maybe take vacation, see the grandkids. Maybe you want to go to Florida, Arizona, and get out of the snow in the winter. So, it's really important for the listeners, even if you're not in that, maybe your parents are going to be in that situation. You know, I don't hate to say they're spending your retirement, but
that's happening with my mother-in-law right now. And we have a situation with my grandfather on my side and my mother-in-law, my wife's mother, who has a bunch of money and could have given it to the kids to go to college or something. But now she's in assisted living and soon probably long-term memory care. So,
and Medicaid, you know, it's not paying. Well, first of all, it's not paying for assisted living, right? So that's going to be on your own, right? So there's so much into this. You know, there's different levels of care. There's in-home, then there's assisted living, and then there's where you need some more care, and then eventually maybe a nursing home, or even on, when it gets worse, be on the memory side of nursing home care. And the memory care side is even more expensive. You know, that's running maybe
memory care is crazy.
So yes, my dad was on memory care because of his Lewy body's disease. So I mean, that could be $15,000 a month. So it's just crazy. So there are things you can do.
There are things you can do, but the answer is, and the good news here, let's make sure we really drive this point home, Chris, is if you have a plan, if you have an estate plan in place and you have a plan to cover healthcare and retirement, and people say, well, I'm not going to have that kind of money. Well, if you have a plan in place, it will help greatly. And there are ways to help cover it. I mean, there are people say, well, long-term care is insurance is too much, and I might never get that money back. Well, there are other options. I know you have a number of strategies. I mean, let's say somebody has a fixed indexed annuity. You can get a long-term care rider on that to help cover part of it. Or like you said, you at least want the estate planning side intact so you don't, it doesn't put that burden on your children or grandchildren. So, or your spouse.
Yeah. So most of what you read on the internet about avoiding probate, that's all fine and dandy, and we want to avoid probate. To be honest with you, look, the biggest expense in probate is what, Tony?
The attorney.
Exactly. So the reason you get a $20 will from people is because maybe they're going to make 10 grand when they do your estate. Right. So, and like here in our county, we have a fee schedule that's based solely on the value of the assets. So you could have one account with $1 million in it, and it might run you $40,000. I don't know the number right now, but it's based on percentages, right? So
sure.
So the whole thing about avoiding probate is a great thing. Like, we want to do that. But if you spend it all on the nursing home, there's going to be nothing to probate anyhow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we've had people, because either they, the word's not out there, or they have the wrong type of trust. And they said, well, the attorney said this was going to protect my assets, and lo and behold, it's not. And now they already have some dementia, and it's too late to do the 5-year plan. So, look, we're here for the people to do that. Come in and talk to me or Matt. It's such an expensive endeavor. I'll tell you, Tony, we've actually incorporated into our client service agreement is we talk about this, we map it out on the whiteboard, and if you say no, we have you sign off that you're saying no.
Yeah.
So when you spend the $500,000 on a nursing home and the kids come back and say, hey, Chris, I thought you wrote a book on this, so how come you didn't protect mom's assets? Well, mom and dad said they didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's tough. And people need to know. And I think we're headed toward, I mean, people are going through it now, but more and more people, as people live longer and longer and costs go up, this has become a national crisis and people aren't planning ahead. And so, people are sitting there with 600,000 or $1 million in the bank. They think I'm set. And then all of a sudden they need memory care. Like my mom has Alzheimer's or has Parkinson's. And so we're worried about the Lewy bodies.
And Parkinson's could last a long time.
She's had it a long time, and she lived with it fine because they've come up with some great medication. But now it's really starting to take its toll.
And that's even you mentioned that's even more reason to, because the medications and these diseases are lasting longer, right? So so Alzheimer's could last 10 years where it used to only last 2, right? So so, this is being a little ludicrous, but, you think everybody wants Alzheimer's cured. There's probably a big faction. I shouldn't really say this on air, but, do all the nursing homes want, do all the nursing homes want do all the nursing homes in this country want Alzheimer's cured?
Yeah. Do the drug companies want to stop selling the medication to get them through? Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to question, the motivation. Obviously, one of the biggest profit centers for all these assisted living centers that have popped up because of the aging population, memory care is just they just charge through the roof, and
and we're just getting at the tip of it, right? It's just the beginning of the baby boomers getting there. So I'm at the end of the baby boomers. I think in the last year or two of the baby boomers, but all those people. So I'm going to.
You don't look a day over 30 though.
Okay, so I'm going to be 60 this year. So you figure the people that are 75 to 60, that's the baby boomer generation that's going to go through all these nurses. I mean, we have one going up across the street. It is a city block long.
Yep, they're massive.
So whatever you take out of this, come see us. Besides doing taxes and investments, we do this planning because what was the point of saving you taxes and saving you money and growing your money, and then you're going to spend it all in nursing homes. So there are ways to save money, and it's never too late. So we have people going to nursing home next month. There's still stuff we can do. We might not be able to save everything, but we might be able to save a good portion of it. So come and talk to us. Either call us at 216-485-1040. It's the law office number, or anselmolaw.com. Either way, you can get a hold of us. And we'd be glad to sit down and potentially help you.
All right. Well, that sounds great, Chris. And great show. I mean, it's really important, here on the road to retirement, you have to make these plans. And so give that phone number one more time before we go.
216-485-1040.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. And that does it for today's episode. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thank you.